An elderly priest sought the help of a well-known psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Richard Gallagher. And this priest wanted Dr. Gallagher's professional opinion of a woman under his care who the priest thought, was possessed by an evil spirit. And Dr. Gallagher himself, a practicing Catholic, said, okay, I'll see this client, but I got to tell you, I'm a little dubious of demonic possession. It's kind of a carryover from an ancient culture in the attempts to attribute physical maladies to things like epilepsy as demonic possession. So he saw Julia, her pseudonym name. And everything changed. Because Julia was a self-avowed, practicing Satanist queen. And when she talked to Dr. Gallagher, sometimes she would shift into alternate voices. And Julia professed to know intimate details about Dr. Gallagher's life known only to a few people. Well, Julia died shortly thereafter. And Dr. Gallagher recounted this story in an op-ed article in the Washington Post about 9 years ago, 2016. And he titled the article, "As a psychiatrist, I diagnose mental illness. I also spot demonic possession." You know, can you imagine the controversy of this op-ed article? It was one of the most widely distributed and controversial op-ed editorials of its day. Over 1 million hits in the first week alone by online readers. Now, you might expect people like us to write such an article. But we're talking here about a board-certified psychiatrist, Princeton educated, medicine at Yale, teaching at Columbia University and New York Medical College. And it goes on to write in the article that in his experience, demonic possession is rare, yet altogether real. Now, I got to come clean with you. In my 42 years of serving a church, I never once participated in the exorcism of a demon. I've never witnessed one. I've had my doubts with some people, but I've never acted on those doubts and never could say positively the person is possessed with demons. C.S. Lewis writes in the foreword of Screwtape Letter that there are two equal and opposite errors we can fall into about devils. Do you remember this? One is to disbelieve in their existence, and the other error is to believe and have an unhealthy interest in them. But maybe there's a third error into which we can fall, which is to believe, but not to take them seriously enough. I think that's my predilection, not to take them seriously enough. Now, why is it when we come to the Gospels that Jesus has all these encounters with evil spirits? When the kingdom of God comes, the kingdom of darkness ramps up its assault also. Jesus coming drives the evil spirits out of their hiding places. All right, let's look at one such story. It's, as you heard, in the Gospel of Mark. It's chapter 9, so we're more than halfway through Mark's Gospel. And Jesus has just gone with 3 hand-picked disciples to a mountain where he's transfigured. And they come down from the mountain, these 3 hand-picked disciples, and they meet up with the other 9 remaining disciples. And they're locked in a debate with the scribes, which are the biblical teachers of the law, over their apparent failure to drive an evil spirit out of a boy. And no doubt, the scribes are trying to stick it to the disciples for their failure to drive out the evil spirit and thereby undermine his authority. So Jesus asked them, what are you arguing with them about? He directs a question to the disciples about the scribes. And the father of the boy with the evil spirit is the first to speak. And he says, at the center of the controversy is his son, who when the evil spirit comes upon him, he goes into convulsion and foams at the mouth and becomes rigid in posture. And then the father says, I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able. And I don't know, Jesus kind of goes nuclear here. You know, he just says, you faithless generation. How long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Asking 2 rhetorical questions in quick succession is a way of kind of underlying the importance of this question. Bring the boy to me, Jesus says. So they bring the boy to him, and then all hell breaks loose. The boy goes into this violent convulsion. And at this moment, I don't know, I may be reading too much into it. It's almost like Jesus goes clinical. Because listen, this question fascinates me. He asks, how long has he been like this? Kind of curious. Like, anytime you go to the doctor, what's the very first question the doctor asks you? After the name. Stop it. Okay. So he's going to say, how long have you been feeling this way? All right? How long? And the father says, since childhood. And the spirit tries to throw him into the fire, into water. And then he says, look what he says now. If you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And notice what Jesus says. If you can, of course I can. Question is whether you can. What? You can but believe. I like the way Charles Spurgeon interprets this. He imagines Jesus speaking and he says, if you can lies not with me but with you. It's not if I can, but if you can believe. And that's why Jesus adds, all things are possible for the one who believes. Which unfortunately has become kind of the go-to verse in today's church. I mean, all things are possible for them who believes is not a carte blanche statement that Jesus will do everything we want him to do. Well, this is the moment then where the dad says to Jesus, I believe. Help my unbelief. Don't you love his candor? So exquisite. And this is the moment where Jesus says, you deaf and mute spirit, come out of him. Never enter him again. And the boy appears like a corpse. And Jesus takes him by the hand and revives him. End of story. Not quite. Because later, the disciples are assembled with Jesus in a house. And they say, why couldn't we drive out that evil spirit? And Jesus says, this kind, now, I don't know what this kind refers to. I assume it means this kind of evil spirit must be a formidable evil spirit. This kind only comes out by prayer. That's the end of the story. Now, as I stand back and I look at this passage and I say, what's the center of the passage? And I'm drawn to this Father's prayer, I believe, help thou my unbelief. But also when I look at it, I see these words, you faithless generation. And who's he speaking about here? You unbelieving generation. Is he speaking about the scribes? The people who know biblical law, they ought to know better that they're seeing the Messiah face to face. Is he speaking about the crowd, the unbelieving crowd, who are drawn to Jesus' teachings but turn on him faster than a New York Minute when he says things they don't want to hear? Or is he talking about the unbelieving disciples, the 3 handpicked disciples who don't appreciate the meaning of the transfiguration, or the remaining 9 who fail to do what Jesus commissions them to do? I suspect he means everybody. But given the focus of this passage, look at it. It's all about the disciples. I mean, Jesus knows. It's Mark 9. Jesus knows his days are numbered. And we don't have any reaction by the crowd to this exorcism. We don't hear the scribal point of view. We don't even hear the Father's reaction to this answer to his prayer. It's all about the disciples. And I think it pains Jesus in this moment to realize the lack of faith on the count of his disciples. Now, this is a repeating theme, in Mark's gospel. Because in chapter 4, when Jesus calms the storm-tossed sea, he says to them, why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? In Mark chapter 8, he feeds 4,000 with 7 loaves. And now the disciples are in angst about where their next meal is coming from. And Jesus says to them, why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? Ears, do you not hear? Do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you collect? 12, they said. The 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketful of pieces did you collect? 7. Do you not yet understand? Now, in Mark's gospel in chapter 3 and chapter 6, Jesus commissions his disciples to do 2 things: to preach the gospel, and curiously enough, to cast out evil spirits. And in chapter 6, they're successful. Chapter 9, they fail at the commission Jesus gives them to do. Here's my take. Just because Jesus commissions us to do something doesn't mean we can do it. And this dependence on God morphs into misplaced self-importance. And there's such a temptation to use ministry for our own ends. I see it all the time, don't you? Someone preaches a credible sermon, people have good words to say about them, and what does it do? It goes right to the head. And we begin to think we're doing this in our own strength alone. You know, as though ministry is some technique to master or skill to achieve. And we lose this prayerful dependence on God. I mean, where does the passage end? The disciples asked Jesus, why couldn't we drive out this evil spirit? And Jesus says this kind only comes out by prayer. Now, he's not introducing some unrelated theme. This is not a new pericope. You can use that word here. All right? It's the capstone. Prayer unleashes God's power. And I love this prayer. I believe, help my unbelief. One of the most authentic prayers in Scripture. Because, my friends, when we come to faith, we don't come to mature trust. I can tell you, we are learning all our lives what it means to trust Jesus. All right. So, let me bring this all the way down to where we live. All right, this is the so what in my sermon. So what difference does this make? We are these unbelieving disciples. Because I think we put limits on what we think God can do. And we expect God to work in one area of our life. And I think we have kind of given up hope for God to work in another area of life. We expect God to show up in worship like this. But some of us really do not believe that God is going to show up with a fractured family relationship or a fractured friendship or an appeal that I'd like to be married, find a marriage partner, or improve a marriage, or get rid of a sin pattern in my life. And I think we set limits on what God can do. And that's why I love this passage, because it gives me hope. I mean, you don't have to have perfect faith, folks. And for any of us today who are locked in a titanic struggle between faith and unbelief, this story has our name written all over it, doesn't it? My son Andrew tapped me that he graduated from here a few years ago, and got to tell a story on you. Hope you don't mind, because I'm going to do it. But he was growing up strong-willed and cautious. It's kind of a lethal combination, being strong-willed and cautious. But we had to coax him to do new things, my late wife and whether it was swimming lessons or going to summer camp or trying new activities. And there were times when I would become so exasperated, I would say, you just got to trust me. All right? I have your best interest in mind. I want you to try this. If you don't like it, you can quit. And he almost never quit. He tried it. He liked it. You know? And I think in so many words, that's kind of what God says to us. God sometimes comes to a point where he says, would you trust me? Even when life doesn't make sense to you? Will you trust me in this? I have your best interest in heart. Just trust me. In 1880, Louisa Stead and her husband and little daughter Lily, 4-year-old daughter Lily, went to Long Island Beach, and they had a picnic. And they heard a frantic cry of a little boy offshore struggling to stay above water. And Louisa's husband dove into the water to save this boy. Failed in the rescue attempt and drowned in the process. And Louisa went on to become missionary in South Africa. And there's one hymn that's attributed to her, which is kind of a simple song, all right? 'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus. I'm going to invite our musicians forward. We're going to close with this. We're going to pray in this song. Lord, oh, for grace to trust you more. Right, that's our prayer. We sing that song. Let's stand. Oh, for grace to trust you more.